So let's welcome aboard Emily Schrader, journalist and commentator. Hi, Ems, how you doing?
Hi, good to be here.
Oh, Iran. I mean, do you know what? I've got this thing that I do every year, which is the list, where I try and predict certain things that might happen in the following year. And on my list was bye-bye Ayatollah. Hasn't taken many days for that to potentially actualise. What's going on? Because Iran has shut down the internet, so it's very hard to get information, accurate information about what's happening. Everything's sort of being posted real time on X, but I don't know what's true, what isn't. Is the Shah coming back? Has the Ayatollah fled? Or are we about to potentially see things take a turn for the worst and see the regime really start cracking down on those brilliant freedom fighters who have said, enough of your tyranny, enough of the dictatorship. Yes, this is about that poor wee girl who was brutally murdered in prison for wearing a hijab wrong. It's also about the fact that inflation is running at 75%. But largely this is because it's become an absolute whack job, crazy, dystopian evil. I've said the word dystopian a lot today. Islamist regime that it's treating the poor Persians like muck.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I can't disagree with almost anything you said. I think that what you're asking about, is there going to be a crackdown or is there going to be liberation? I think the most likely scenario as it stands right now is that sometime this year, if not in the next few months, but sometime this year, I believe, it will probably be both. And I do think it's going to get worse before it gets better. What we're seeing right now is a complete communications blackout. And I want to emphasize, because a lot of people aren't aware, they haven't just shut off the internet. They also shut off all mobile connectivity. No one has anything except, of course, the regime, who always exempt themselves from these restrictions. But the communications blackout is more severe than we have ever seen. At the same time, the movement is the biggest we have seen at least since 2009, possibly more. We don't have all the information because, as you correctly stated, it's very, very difficult to know exactly in real time what's happening because of that communications blackout. What I know so far from talking to the limited number of people that I know on the ground who do have access to Starlink is that the regime has even been trying to disrupt Starlink. They are going around trying to identify where there are signals and then aggressively trying to disrupt that or shut that down itself. So it's a really, really dire situation in terms of getting information out. We know that dozens have been killed, that many more were killed last night as well. Dozens, if not hundreds more, were injured. We don't have any formal numbers because, again, the information flow isn't really going. But what we do know, what happened just a few minutes ago, was Khamenei, the supreme leader, making a speech in which he again threatened President Trump and claimed that the protesters were acting at the behest of foreign powers and also Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, and that these protests would be shut down by any means necessary. Very, very extreme and explicit rhetoric that we heard from him. And we know what that means, especially in a time when there's a complete communications blackout. They've done this before. Every time we see blackouts like this, it means they're massacring people. And that's why from yesterday until today, when we saw that blackout, I have been raising awareness and speaking about the fact that, people are saying, well, when should the U.S. do something? When should President Trump act? Now. The time to act is now, because there are actual lives at stake. There are people who are dying now, and there are more people who will die if the United States and other allies aren't able to bring this regime ultimately to its knees. That is what needs to happen.
Oh, and without a doubt, that is what Trump wants to happen. We saw that. I mean, he was the first person in the Western world to actually stand up properly against the Iranian regime, not pretend you can have some sort of negotiation with a terrorist state. Oh, can you stop enriching uranium and we'll do some trade with you? Oh, OK, then. I mean, ridiculous. Got us into one hell of an issue where Iran managed to get so big and so powerful. It was funding Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthi rebels, making drones for Russia, just basically exporting terrorism and evil throughout the world. And Trump was the first person to go, no, we're not having this anymore. And with the old bunker buster bomb, flew over there, boff, right down in the pits where they were trying to make their nuclear weapons. Good on him. And I think that where Trump says, if you harm a hair on anyone's head, we're coming after you, my prediction is this weekend we will see that happen.
Well, I don't want to speculate in terms of if and when something is actually going to happen, but I do think based on the rhetoric that we're seeing from him, even his statements this morning that I saw, we're very, very clear, a clear threat, a reiterated threat to the supreme leader not to be killing protesters, which we already know is happening. It's really amazing to me that someone can claim to be the leader of 90 million people who absolutely despise him. And he has such a disdain for his own alleged, his own population. It's really unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. It's very Orwellian. I was just posting about it on X earlier. I cannot believe that you can look at what happened last night with millions of your own people rising up in the streets, calling for your death, calling for the downfall of the Islamic Republic and the IRGC. And your response is, oh, well, this is just because of a foreign power. Like, dude, read the room already.
Well, no, the thing is they know how hated they are, but they don't care. They lead a death cult, quite frankly, and the sooner they're gone, the better, not just for the brilliant Iranians. Iran has such potential in the world. When people hear names of countries in the Middle East, they just think, well, maybe they're all, crazy countries. But Iran, Persia, that ancient empire that brought so much to the world, so much. You wind back the clock and you look at footage from Iran in the 1970s, it looked great. I would have lived there. Women walking about in mini skirts, beautiful weather, booming business. Then all of a sudden, the mad Ayatollah comes in, kicks out the Shah, and it becomes an absolute hellhole just like that. And like I said, wages terror and destruction around the world. So let's blimmin' well hope that America is basically the country to go in and finally say, this ends and this ends now. It's a very strange thing, Emily, that yes, the BBC have covered it, are covering it, but they really don't seem to care that much. They would rather bang on about what's going on with ICE over in America because that means bashing Donald Trump over the head. And thank you, actually, for also bringing up the importance of Starlink, giving those people a chink of light out of their prison cell country to be able to communicate with the rest of the world. No other channel is going to be doing that because of course, Elon Musk is #1 enemy at the moment for reasons that I can't fathom. But we've also just learned that journalists with, quote, egregious views were allowed on BBC Arabic, according to the boss of the BBC. Why? What is going on? What? I don't understand how our national broadcaster has seemingly been captured, and yes, this is all part of the World Service, but has seemingly been captured not just by radical leftism, but elements of Islamism as well.
Well, I think Iran is a really great example of the, combination of those two and how dangerous it is from 1979 until today. And I do want to say, I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised at all that we saw this kind of rhetoric from repeated guests on BBC Arabic, because it's not just BBC Arabic. It's also BBC in English and, quite frankly, BBC Persian, which the Persian community has dubbed Ayatollah BBC because they have been so promotional since the Islamic Revolution in 1979 of Khomeini himself. This is something that they gave, unrestricted almost airtime to, promoting the Islamic Revolution and misrepresenting actively the situation on the ground. And they've done so for many years since then. So it's not surprising at all that today we see guests over and over again who are supporting the actions of Hamas on October 7th, who are supporting a Marxist Islamist terrorist ideology, who dehumanize Jews and other minorities, especially in the Middle East, to the point where they have no problem with massacres and slaughters of people who are different than the Islam, the version of Islam that they follow. This is something that unfortunately has been has permeated seemingly every channel of the BBC. And this is something that they really need to root out at a greater level. And we saw a great example of this during the Gaza war with the documentary that the BBC put out, where they, highlighted everything going on in Gaza and then forgot to disclose that the person who was narrating it was actually the relative of a Hamas commander. So this is what BBC is doing. It's lazy. It's contrary, quite frankly, to journalism. And it's been going on for far, far, far too long. This is not an exception. It's not something unusual for them. It's par for the course.
Sadly, I agree with much of what you just said. Emily, thank you ever so much. The brilliant Emily Schrader, always a delight to have on the programme. She tells it like it is, doesn't she?